Hello everyone and welcome to another very nice game you guys requested from the Tata Still India Rapid Edition. It's round 3 and it's Praggnanandhaa versus Vincent Keymer, and one of these two gentlemen is leading the tournament after the first day, but we have to check out the game to see which one. So Pragg, as you know, is currently number 19 in the world's rating list. If you consider classical rating, I don't these are their rapid ratings, but neither of them are playing neither of them plays that much rapid tournaments to actually have a valid rating, so I think this is way below their actual playing strength. And Vincent is currently number 26 in the world's classical rating list. Both of them are 2,700 plus players. So let's check out what happened here. A very exciting matchup. Pragg has the white pieces and he opened with knight to f3. He went for the reti opening, knight to f6 with g3 going for the king's Indian attack, and pawn to c5 with bishop to g2, knight to c6, and now pawn to c4 and pawn to d5. Of course, if your opponent allows d5, you will always play it regardless of the opening. C captures, knight captures, and now knight to c3. So all been played before. We have g6 and queen to b3, putting pressure on the knight here. And sorry about that arrow. And the usual move here is to just defend with knight with pawn to e6, or you can bring the knight back to b6. But here we have knight d to b4. It's extremely rare, only been played a handful of times, and already here we have a completely new game, as a3 and castles are known moves, but here we have knight to e4, and it is now already as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So it's hard to say who is surprising who here actually. The point is to capture on c5, and Vincent just invites it. Bishop to g7 now puts pressure on this long diagonal. Knight captures on c5, and now queen to a5. Developing the queen with tempo, the knight is attacked, and there is really no good square for the knight because the queen is on b3, and you kind of don't want to play knight to d3. So queen to c4 to defend the knight and prepare knight back to b3, b6, and now knight to b3. And here just queen to a6, offering a queen trade, which is accepted but not directly. Here we have knight to e5, and now Vincent trades on c4. If knight captures, of course, you capture the b4 knight with the queen. So queen captures, and now knight captures on c4, and the bishop gets developed via bishop to a6. Sorry, not bishop to a6, bishop to e6. Now attacks the knight, again comes with tempo. d3 defending the knight, and now rook to c8. We have castles, and now pawn to b5, chasing away the knight. Knight to e3, and here Vincent castles. We have bishop to d2. Here Pragg has to give up a pawn because there's just no good way to develop the pawn. It seems that Vincent's pawn sacrifice was definitely justified, and it's hard for Pragg to get his bishop and rooks into the game. So he has to give back the pawn. He plays bishop to d2, and okay, Vincent captures it. Bishop captures on b2. We have rook a to b1 and bishop to g7. And okay, it's equal material, but one thing that you can notice is that Vincent has two pawns on the queen side. Pragg has one, which means that once pieces started to get traded off, pawns will start marching down the board, and at some point Vincent will have a pass pawn. So pawn to a3 chases away the knight, but now the knight doesn't go back and allow the rook to enter the game. That would be great if that was an option. Vincent plays knight to a2, stops rook f to c1, and now Pragg has to figure out how to get the knight away from there. The bishop simply will not allow the rook to attack it. So for the moment, you just ignore it. Knight to c5 goes after Vincent's bishop, and now knight to d4 puts pressure on the e2 pawn. We have knight captures on e6 and f captures. You could also capture with the knight to keep your pawn structure intact, but it's better for the knight to keep pressuring the e2 pawn. Rook f to e1 defending, and now knight to c3 with a double attack on the e2 pawn, and also the rook on b1 is attacked, so you have to give up the bishop here, and this means that, well, once bishop captures and rook captures, now look at this pressure. The bishop here is just ruling unrivaled, and the pawns will now start marching forward. Vincent will get a pass pawn on the queen side, and the best way to counter this is pawn to a4. It was not played by Pragg. A4 pawn captures and rook to b4. This is the best way to counter. If a3, you put the rook behind the pass pawn, you capture on a7, and you minimize your casualties. However, rook to a1 was played by Pragg, and now we have pawn to a5, preparing pawn to b4. We have bishop to e4, and now pawn to a5. a4. You kind of want to also play b4, and after pawn captures, play a3, because the bishop covers the a1 square. You don't want to have a passed b pawn here. Here you want to have the passed a pawn. Rook to a2, and now comes rook f to c8, doubling up on the c file, king to g2, and now bishop to e5. We have rook e to a1, and now king to g7. Not even rushing with bishop to d6 to put pressure on the pawn. Pawn to h4. Now this is basically admitting you have no more moves, so you're going to play h4, h5 to start creating some weaknesses on the king side. Bishop to d6, and now pawn to h5. Okay, Pragg captures it, and now knight to d1. For the lack of a better move, rook to c2. Because if you didn't go for this, Vincent would probably just go rook to c1, trade off the rooks, and then capture the pawn on e2. So rook captures on c2, knight captures on c2, attacks the rook, and the a3 pawn will now fall. So rook to a2, knight captures on a3, and now pawn to d4. We have pawn to b4. The pawn starts marching forward. Even though there was no need to rush this, it's okay. It's a very nice move for a rapid game. Knight to b2. Going after the a4 pawn now, and pawn to b3, attacking the rook while the knight is defended nicely by the bishop. We have rook to a1, and now knight to b5. You have to give up the a4 pawn. Knight captures on a4, and now knight captures on d4. And okay, you are left with the passed b pawn. Not as great as the passed a pawn, as it's going to be a little bit harder to defend the queening square, as we do have a light square bishop instead of the dark square bishop instead of the light square bishop. And here, rook to b1, the only move that sort of keeps Pragg in the game. He played pawn to e3, and now I'd ask you to pause the video, but the winning move is literally the one you are looking at now. I mean, it's very obvious, and you guys are looking at it now. And of course, Vincent played it, so congratulations to everyone. Knight to c2 is the move that wins the game. Point is that if you capture with the bishop, then just pawn captures. You cannot stop the pawn. If you play rook to c1, then just bishop to a3, and you give up here. Or if rook to b1, as was played in the game, now comes the real threat, and that of course is rook c4, as the bishop and knight are undefended. So you have to give up material here. Again, capturing here isn't much better, because still your rook is attacked and the c1 is hanging, and after you play rook a1 to, let's say, defend the knight, you can just bring a queen into the game, and now the rook has to be given up for the queen, and of course you are now up a full rook and completely winning. So after rook to c4, rook captures on b3 was played, and now Vincent wins a full piece. Rook captures on e4. Now Vincent is up a full bishop. We have knight to c3. Of course, Pragg will still try to be a little bit tricky about it, as okay, Vincent does have two sets of doubled pawns, but of course he knows there's no way in doing that. Rook to b4. Rook captures on b4. Sorry, not bishop captures. Knight captures on b4 was played. We have knight to e4, and now knight to d5. There's simply no counterplay here. Knight to g5, and now knight to c7. You're at a territory where you're just waiting for your opponent to make a mouse slip, or to get disconnected from the internet. King to h3, king to g6, knight to f3, and now knight to d5. Few more moves were made. Knight to d4, king to f7, knight to f3, and pawn to e5. And he was in this position on move 48 that Praggnanandhaa resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So pretty much a complete outplay from the start. A very nice opening, very nice idea. Everything started with after Pragg's queen to b3 move with this very rare knight b to d4. Like I said, only played 5 times before, and Pragg didn't figure out a way how to properly play against this. And you've seen how powerful this bishop was ever since this knight got to c3, and Pragg was forced to give up the bishop. The bishop on g7 was just completely unrivaled. He created a pass pawn. Even though it was not perfect play with black, those pawns could have been pushed with greater precision. It was enough, as the position was just so good. So yeah, very nicely done by Vincent, and very nice victory for him, and also he's one of the leaders after the first day. The second day has just started, so I'm going to be watching. If you guys have any favorite games, do use #suggestion, and I will very gladly go over them. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank David Kimura, obviousmimic.com, Gerard Princeton, Bonbon Soul and Baby Boo, and GrizzlyChessFestival.org.gg for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this fine event until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.